What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I have some tips for new and beginner photographers who are really wanting to improve quickly, level up their skill, and become the best photographers that they can be in a short period of time. Well, relatively short, because Rome wasn't built overnight, but these tips will definitely help you improve at a faster pace than you would if you were doing none of these things. So some of these things are kind of basic, kind of obvious, and others are, little niche things that I've found really helped me to improve. Before I get started with the video, I just wanted to point out my fabulous new background. I don't know if I'm going to film every video with this background or just a few or maybe none, but I'm pretty proud of it. I've been taking these photos with my Instax Mini for months now, some of them years. The ones that are behind my head are years old. But my idea for this photo wall was that every time I did a photo shoot with somebody, I would take a picture of them with the Instax, and then eventually I would have like a whole wall of all the photo shoots that I've done. And I thought that that would make a really interesting video background. So let me know if you like it. I'm gonna keep building on it. I know some of them aren't quite straight and they're all awkward distance apart, but I did my very best, and that's what counts. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump right into the tips for this video. I have a little script down below that I'm going to be referencing from time to time, so if you see my eyes looking down that way, that's what I'm looking at. Okay, so number one tip is stop shooting in auto. If you are shooting in auto, you need to learn not to shoot in auto like now. And if you get too comfortable, if you start developing your style, you kind of fall into the grid and you're still shooting in auto, that is really going to come back to bite you later on when you're ready to kind of develop trying out things like low light photography or photography of moving subjects or even photography with multiple subjects in it, like things to focus on. It can be really difficult to nail that kind of shot when you're shooting in auto, especially like the auto ISO is just terrible in my experience. So yeah, avoid that, learn manual. There's a whole bunch of different diagrams of like the triangle of shutter speed, ISO, and aperture. And that triangle is really like your bread and butter. You should be very familiar with that. Draw diagrams, write notes, whatever you have to do to remember that. But that is definitely the number one thing, is get out of auto. Tip number two, please pick a niche. Pick a niche. Pick a niche. I've seen a lot of photographers on Instagram who are like trying to be the handyman, the jack of all trades of photography, and it's just weird. Like, think about it this way. You're having a wedding and you want to hire a wedding photographer, for example. Are you going to hire the person who has been specializing in weddings for the last 5 years, been like doing nothing but weddings and has a huge portfolio full of weddings? Or are you going to go to the person who's got like some nature, some landscape, some grad portraits, some fashion, and some weddings? Maybe there's like 3 examples of weddings on their entire Instagram feed, and maybe they're good, but you can see like most of their time isn't spent shooting weddings, so you're not gonna hire them. And same goes for if you're wanting grad photos. Are you gonna go to that guy who's got weddings, grad photos, nature, landscapes, all that on his page? Or are you gonna go to the person who has like just been doing grad photos for their entire photography career? So it sucks because it's kind of limiting, and I honestly think like if you don't have a clear idea of what you want to do with your photography career early on, then that's like, there's so much room to experiment and do that. Like, take pictures of every single thing you could possibly need. But finding commonalities between the photos that you like to take can really go a long way towards helping you develop a style more quickly. So, a lot of my photos, for example, on my Instagram, I don't have a lot of pictures of the same thing. I mean, I've got a lot of portraits, obviously, because I'm a portrait photographer, and a lot of fashion photos, but I also take a lot of street photos and a lot of like weird kind of lighting photos and things like that. But they all go together because I incorporate a similar theme and a similar set of lighting conditions. So even if you aren't really sure what kind of thing you want to photograph, having some kind of consistency in the way your photographs look can really help you out, especially in the beginning. I was looking at this one Instagram the other day, and he had around 1,500 followers after being a photographer for 9 years. And posting for 9 years on Instagram. And I believe the reason his photography was all really good, like, really high quality shots, obviously really high quality equipment. But I believe the reason why he stalled in, developing that online audience was because his content was just like all over the place. Like, he's got pictures of baked goods, he's got pictures of weddings and babies and like top down drone shots. He's got photos from like out on hikes and like up mountains and stuff. And while I also take pictures of all of those things, not weddings or babies, but I'd also take pictures of food and hikes and all that. I don't post those on Instagram because they would interfere with the brand and the style that I'm trying to cultivate. So I really don't recommend trying the jack of all trades approach because it just confuses your audience and it can really stunt your growth on social media, as well as kind of getting in the way of the theme of your art, I guess. But all that said, like, one big piece of advice is take pictures of absolutely everything. Just because you're taking pictures of them doesn't mean you need to post every picture, but, you know, always have your camera on you. I started carrying my camera bag just as my purse because I just wanted to always have my camera, and I felt like there was times when I didn't have my camera and I would walk by like a protest or, you know, some crazy thing going on in the streets, and I was just like, well, that's my fault because I should have had it on me. It's not that heavy. I should just carry it everywhere. So I do. I carry it everywhere. You should too. And, you know, take pictures of absolutely everything. And another piece of advice is develop a way to sort and store your photos easily in the beginning so you're not having to go back and redo it all a year later with like 6,000 images. That was all a bit of a ramble, but tip number 3 is do as many photo shoots as you possibly can, especially in the beginning. You want to be doing them back to back to back to back. And the reason why I say that is because learning photography, or learning any art really, is really similar to learning a language. You can study the language, you can rehearse the language, you can write out books, notebooks filled with vocabulary, but nothing is going to help you actually remember and be able to use that language in the same way as visiting a country where you are immersed in the language, where you are speaking that language every single day. And it's exactly like that with photography. If you are taking pictures every single day, that is really going to immerse you in the art form and help you level up super quickly. And that's a main piece of advice that a lot of YouTube's most popular and successful photographers will give you, is just get out there and shoot. I find it helpful to do like a daily photography challenge. So that's just making sure that I'm picking up my camera to go out and take pictures of something at some point every day. Maybe it's a 15-minute walk and I'm taking 2 photos, but I'm out there and I'm doing it. I'm in that mindset. And every time you do that, it makes it easier to slip back into that kind of creative, artistic photographer's mindset. So get out there and shoot as much as humanly possible. You know, if you're a portrait fashion photographer, you're shooting with people like I do, you also learn things from the models. So maybe you're learning cool things about how to pose models, or how models like to be spoken to, or how to give direction. You're learning something in every shoot, right? And you're not gonna learn that from paper. You're not gonna learn that from watching YouTube videos. You're only gonna learn that stuff from being out there and interacting with the people who would someday be your clientele. Kind of along that same vein is tip number 4. And I actually think I'm going to stop numbering these tips because I like to go on a bit. But so tip number 4 is, as if a shoot goes badly, and you know, you will have shoots that go badly in the beginning. You just got to be fine with that, swallow it, move on. But you also want to immediately interrogate what it was about that shoot that went wrong. So was the model difficult to direct? Maybe that was an issue with your direction. Was the styling off? Were the colors off? Well, maybe that was an issue with your artistic direction. Was the lighting wrong? Was the setting wrong? You know, what went wrong with that photo? You really want to like sit down and scrutinize it. Scrutinize every photo from that set and find a list of common themes that can explain what is wrong in each picture. And, you know, for a photo shoot where you bomb the whole thing, there will be those common themes, and that's how you learn, is by addressing those. And there's like a learning tip that's like the things that you know, when you're doing like a multiple choice questionnaire or whatever, when you're studying it, it's a good idea to just go through it first, because the questions that you get wrong will actually be the ones that stick in your head the most. So by failing, by messing up, by getting things wrong, that's actually the best way to learn. So don't be upset when you bomb a photo shoot. That's gonna happen, as long as you take the opportunity to learn from it. Okay, so the next 3 items on my list are all kind of in the same category, and they're all related to finding and saving inspiration. Finding, saving, and referencing inspiration. So when you're browsing Instagram casually, you want to be saving the photos that you like into folders. And so I've got a bunch of albums on my Instagram. I've got street photo inspo, fashion inspo, street style inspo, architecture inspo, color inspo, props, effects, all kinds of stuff. I've got dozens and dozens of albums and hundreds of photos saved in those albums, and all of them are just, you know, inspiring, interesting looking photos that I've seen on Instagram. And by saving them all in one place, you can then go back and kind of interrogate the commonalities between those photos that you liked. So what was it that you liked about all of these photos that are in this genre? What do they all have in common, or what are some of the common themes that you can maybe strive to replicate in your own art? I think it is incredibly important for us as artists to draw from a huge range of sources, because if you are only going with what's already in your head, like as, you know, good photography, you're never going to grow past where you're already at. And that's just a fact. Like, I feel like there's this weird belief where it's like, oh, a truly creative, true individual just has this infinite generation of new ideas. And if they just sit in one place and think hard enough, they'll be able to generate new ideas. And I just don't think that's the case for like anybody. I think you need to have outside stimuli, and you need to draw pieces of that outside stimuli to piece them together into new ways to create new things, right? So exposing yourself to hundreds and hundreds of different images, thousands of different images, and drawing key themes out of all of them, I think is the best way for you to develop creatively. So to expose yourself to all of these images, you're browsing Instagram. Pinterest is also really going to be your friend. I know Pinterest gets a bad rap for being like, for old white ladies cooking recipes and stuff, and yeah, it's definitely for a lot of that, but you can find, it's really, really easy to browse by theme. So if I have any kind of themed shoot coming up, you know, we're doing a bathtub shoot and we want it to be grungy, then I will look through thousands of images of grungy bathtub shoots, see what I really like about them, kind of think about what I could add to them to improve. You know, maybe there's pops of color missing, or maybe I've never seen one with lime green incorporated or something like that, right? But being able to look at all of those thousands of images available and synthesize something new out of them is hugely beneficial, I think, to the creative process. So Pinterest is your friend, which brings me to my next point. Make mood boards. So a mood board is just like a set of images that kind of give the gist of the theme that you're going for. So if a model has pink hair and you want to do an 80s theme, maybe, then you can save a bunch of images of people with pink hair and like different 80s makeup looks and different things that go with pink, and like just the general vibe, so that when the model asks like, what should I wear? Or the MUA, the makeup artist, asks, what kind of look do you want? You can just show them the general vibe that's on this board, and they can take the pieces that they are inspired by. So it helps promote their creative process, but also ensures that you guys are all kind of on the same page when it comes to what the shoot is going to look like. We will talk about collaborating with stylists and makeup artists later, so put a little pin in that. But the next point is study photos that are published in magazines. So I do this a lot with fashion magazines. I will buy the latest copy of Vogue so that I can cut out the images and then just completely dissect what makes each image interesting. So is it the color palette? Is it the lines? Is it a combo of both? Is it an interesting setting? What is the lighting like? What is the styling like? All of these little tiny minute details, you really want to be deeply interrogating those, because somebody at this magazine thought that that image was going to be worth reproducing to millions of people. Doing this can also help you stay on top of the latest trends, and I don't mean fashion, I mean like photography trends, because photography is a lot like fashion, especially in the digital age. Photography trends come and go, editing styles come and go, and seeing what is like the latest and greatest, most cutting edge can really help give a contemporary flair to your photography, especially if you're super on top of it and doing it before a mass audience is really exposed. So seeing what's in magazines and seeing what's on like different fashion brands' Instagram is really a great way, at least for fashion and portrait photographers, to learn to appeal to that market, I guess. If you are a nature photographer or a landscape photographer, I honestly recommend doing the same, buying National Geographic magazines or other like, hiking magazines, things like that, mountain bike magazines, ones where they've got photos of beautiful natural settings published, and then just interpreting, what's the color palette like? How's the editing? What's the saturation? Minute details. You want to be absolutely interrogating these. So personally, I have a notebook that I keep, and I always have it, and so I'll cut out photos from magazines, and then I'll write about what makes those photos interesting, why I was drawn to them, that kind of thing, what the common colors are. I'll put photos that match together, I'll try to redraw the model's poses, I'll examine the styling and everything. And then when you're planning your own photo shoot, you can kind of draw from some of these things. So, this one's beautiful because it looks like she's got kind of a tulip, like flower petal dress. So I actually did that. I went out and bought a pink silk dress, and I've shot with the pink tulip flower petal look, and it's really lovely. So yeah, definitely a helpful exercise. Moving on from photo inspo and that kind of thing, my next piece of advice is to watch as much photography YouTube as you possibly can. Now, you can watch the big photography YouTubers. I mentioned them in my last video. There's Jessica Kobasi, Sean Tuck, I can't remember, Evan Raft, Peter McKinnon, Brandon Wolfell. They are all absolutely incredible photographers and have incredible channels. But there's also a lot of smaller photography YouTube channels. I personally love looking around photography YouTubers in my city. I'll just search Vancouver photography and then sort by most recent. And that's how I can kind of see what other people in my city are doing. Honestly, whatever I'm doing on YouTube, I am trying to immerse myself in photography a bunch. And then there's also photography documentaries that interview famous historical photographers. There's photographers who give TED Talks. There's all kinds of content that you can consume, and I would honestly recommend consuming all of it, or at least as much of it as you can stomach, because you will learn something interesting from every single one. You will get, quotes on the creative process. Just understanding how other photographers approach the creative process is also super interesting and super valuable for you developing your own approach. So 100% would recommend just consume as much of that as you can. This next point I actually came up with while I was watching photography YouTube. So there's this genre of photography YouTube called photography hacks or photo tricks type of thing, and it'll be 40 photo hacks to help give you really interesting photography or whatever. And then, they are cool hacks, but only if you want to replicate that exact image usually. But my advice would be, watch as many of these hack videos as you can, write down the hacks that actually look interesting or entertaining, or you think that you could do something interesting with them, and then try them out. That's basically this tip, is just try out as much as possible. You want to try out long exposure, double exposure. You want to be shooting in the bright daytime, in the bright nighttime. Try the floss thing where you put floss over the lens. Try the weird bokeh trick. Try dangling things like tinsel or whatever in front of your lens. Do everything that you can to change the way that you're shooting. Just be constantly changing it up, experimenting, trying new things, because that's the way that you're going to find what you feel most comfortable with. That's the way that you're going to okay, well, I've been doing all these things, but I keep gravitating towards this thing and I keep pulling this thing out of my bag. So clearly this is going to be a part of my overall style, or, base some element of my style around this, that kind of thing. Super, super valuable, and also super fun. You get a ton of different looking images, but if you're sticking with a clear niche, then the different looking images will all kind of play into each other, and it could just be a really great time in your creative development. Okay, so remember that pin that I put in makeup and hairstyle? You're just gonna pull that pin right out now. So you want to be collaborating with makeup and hair artists. So a collab is when everybody involved agrees to work for free. It's usually best to collab on things that you're not getting paid for. So if you're getting paid for a shoot, don't ask a makeup artist to do it for free. That's kind of rude. But if it's just a passion project, you guys are all getting something for your portfolio, then it is totally cool. And I find it's usually really easy to find a makeup artist for a shoot. It'll definitely level up the product of your photography. This is, specifically for portrait photographers, fashion photographers too, but it will really improve the product. And I didn't really realize how important this was until I did start consistently collaborating with makeup artists, and I was like, oh my god, it wasn't my photography that was lacking this whole time. It was the fact that we didn't have a professional styling team that was lacking. Because, I'd look at my photos and I'd be like, I like the lighting, I like the pose, I like the setting, there's something missing, I just don't know. And then I did that 80s theme photo shoot and I was like, oh, that's what was missing. It was super fancy, lovely makeup. So now I've been collaborating really consistently with makeup artists and, doing my very best to be a stylist and to do a good job styling shoots, making an effort to go out and buy new clothes for shoots. So styling and makeup and hair, don't take them for granted. Start collaborating with those people, those professionals as soon as possible. And they also bring something really interesting to your shoot too, because if you're planning the whole thing, then there's nothing fun and exciting for you to learn to work around or to work with, or to kind of challenge your expectations of how the shoot was going to go. It's just going to be the same thing all the way through. Whereas when you're collaborating with other artistic professionals, they're bringing their own thing to the shoot too. So you're getting a lot of outside ideas, and honestly, I think the products of collaboration, at least in terms of photography, are often really worthwhile and beautiful. Okay, well that is all my creative tips. I did have a list of tips on how to grow your socials, but I think I might actually save that for another video. My only advice in this video for you on that regard is watch a bunch of YouTube videos on how to game the Instagram algorithm. Making reels is a really big one right now. You can also go check out my reels. I work really hard on them, but making reels is a really big one, and then interacting with other people on Instagram is another really big one. So learn how to use the algorithm. If you're not sharing on Instagram, Pinterest, or whatever you're using, just learn about the algorithm and how to effectively use your time when you're on that app to help maximize your audience. It can feel really kind of like gross or slimy. I know that there's like this negative perception of influencers because so much of their job is devoted to kind of gaming the algorithm. But honestly, in today's social media landscape, if you want to grow your audience, that's what you're gonna need to do. Like, I just don't really believe that it's possible for somebody to grow organically, at least on Instagram. Maybe like a once in a lifetime kind of thing, but Honestly, I don't know. Like, as a photographer, I don't think you can, no matter how good your photography is. I've seen so many amazing photographers on Instagram who have like very few followers, and I find them out of like a fluke because I'm browsing some random hashtag and I'm like, oh my god, this person is underrated, right? But if they're not gaming the algorithm, they're not going to get picked up by the algorithm. So learn to game the algorithms. Okay, and then my last tip for you is actually was going to be in this like social media category, but it's not really social media. It's networking. So the best tool for networking, in my opinion, is to get business cards. I know that sounds like super old school, and I know not a lot of photographers have business cards, but that is exactly why you are gonna stand out. So when I'm downtown doing street photography, somebody asks, where are these photos gonna go? Like, you know, I'll take a picture of their outfit and they're like, oh, when can I see it? And I'm like, yeah, here's my Instagram. Or here, send me an email. Business card, right? Or I'm connecting with other photographers, I see a fellow street photographer, I'm chatting them up about what their favorite places to shoot in Vancouver are. Boom, business card. Anytime you're talking to a professional who's in the same industry or even in a peripheral industry, they're in film, they're an actor maybe, they're a makeup artist, you know, maybe they're a fashion student studying fashion, boom, business card. Because they're not just adding you on Instagram, you don't just then become, you know, one of the many hundreds of people that they follow on Instagram. They have like a physical, permanent reminder of who you are and what you do. So I find it incredibly helpful. Also, business cards are like really cheap. Like the actual graphic design element, I think you should drop some money on. But the business cards themselves, I think you can get like 250 for 50 bucks. And I did that 2 years ago and I haven't given out anywhere near 250 of them. So you get a really good bang for your buck. If you're in Vancouver, actually, you can try Jukebox Print. That is my favorite. And I've gotten business cards from them twice and postcards from them once. And they're always really fast and really high quality. So yeah, check them out. All right, well, that is my entire video. I hope it was helpful. I hope it was interesting. If you're a beginner photographer and you thought any one of these tips was particularly engaging, let me know down in the comments. If you've got any additional tips to add that I might have missed, let me know down in the comments. If you liked this video and you want to see more like it, maybe you really love the background and you've just been so inspired by it to subscribe to my channel, you can hit that subscribe button. I put out new videos every single Monday. And if you want to be informed every single time I post a video, you can hit that bell icon. I will see you guys next Monday. In the meantime, stay sharp, stay safe, and don't forget to keep shooting. Bye, guys. I didn't say this in the video, but it is so hot in here. It is insane. We have a portable air conditioning unit, but it is small and it's not big enough to hit our entire house. And so we have to segment our house. And then I'm in one of the segmented parts that just doesn't have the air conditioner in it. And it's rough, guys. I think you can actually see my makeup melting off, but don't pay attention to that. Okay, anyway, bye.